Way to save the season, the throw, fire, and down! Incomplete, down at the goal line by San Diego! Tomlinson, off the left side, Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. Think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
Welcome to a week one win. After Hours podcast here. Garrett, Jamie, Craig, we're all here. Chargers win 22-10 at home against the division rival Raiders. There's a lot of stuff we're going to go through. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Big day, start of the season. We're back at it. Make sure you guys are all subscribed up on YouTube, join our Patreon, Twitter, all that junk. But I think where I'd like to start, because I know we want to do like individual players and all that, but let's just talk about like how this game unfolded. Let's start with like the whole picture, because we saw the entire first quarter go with penalties galore. There was multiple penalties on Disley. We got one on Tomlinson. We got one on McConkey, and they just could not get out of their own way in the first quarter. And then in the first half, that offensive line just had no answers for the Raiders' interior front, and the run game couldn't get going. Herbert had no time to throw it. Felt like there was some discombobulation among the play calling, back and forth. It was messy, and we thought we'd expect that. New system, new players, new OC. It's all different, but they were all hurting themselves, which is something that I think is just unexcusable. But once halftime rolls around, it was Harbaugh who said that they had to make adjustments with the offensive line, and then they came out in the second half and things were different. And I just want to get your guys' take on just how good it feels that there's some actual second half adjustments, and how you guys felt that game kind of, went the Chargers' way towards the end there.
Yeah, I thought it was really a tale of two halves, right? I mean, it seemed like a team with a new coaching staff kind of getting its legs under itself. The starters didn't play in the preseason. They weren't organized. I think that was the best way to put it. They just felt very disorganized on the offensive side of the ball in particular. They couldn't get plays in fast enough. Because the plays weren't coming in fast enough, they were not able to reset at the line of scrimmage. They couldn't audible in and out of plays a whole lot. They were rushing to get lined up, rushing to get the ball off. It seemed like every play was, they were getting to play in with 9 or 10 seconds left on the play clock and having to rush to get to the line of scrimmage. And you saw the effects of it, right? They just couldn't get settled. They couldn't get into a rhythm. These are things that we've seen Roman offenses struggle with pretty much everywhere he's been. And it popped up again in the first half. And then you go to the locker room in the second half, feeling, I think, pretty good that you're only down, 7-6 at halftime. Mm. And you're kind of fortunate to only be down 7-6 because you put the offense the offense put the defense in some bad spots. On some short fields and things like that. And they come out and they get everything fixed at halftime pretty much. And they drag the Raiders into deep waters, into the deep end of the pool. They push their head under the water, punch them in the ribs, hold them down. And the Raiders can't fight their way back up to the surface. And they just get dragged further and further down. And the Chargers wind up finishing the game because they were better in the locker room at halftime and on the field in the second half than the Raiders. And they finished the game out on offense and on defense in emphatic fashion in a way that we're not used to seeing the Chargers win games. So this is, I think, a lot of what we should expect from Harbaugh is they're going to win ugly. And that's fine as long as they're finishing games. And with that running game, if they're going to run the ball like that in the second half of games, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Yep, I'm going to second that. So they were pretty much just very disjointed in the first half, and some of that's to be expected. But the difference is this is having experienced head coaching versus not. And you saw that on the Raiders side. With that being said, they played a very tough game, specifically in the first half. They just weren't able to capitalize off of the Chargers really shooting themselves in the foot. I just want to give first and foremost a shout out to the defense for holding it down as long as they did, because with what the offense wasn't doing, they could have ended up in a much bigger hole going into halftime, and then having to fight your way back with an offense that really couldn't get it going, whether it was on the ground or through the air. It would have been quite the drudge trying to make that a competitive game in the second half, but the defense did its job pretty much throughout. The first half was super unbalanced, whether it was like the 4 false starts. They only had 2 first downs in the first half. They were 0 for 7 on third down in the first half. It was just really ugly, but you saw what happened. They went into the locker room, and a experienced head coach that the players believe in got them straight. The coaching staff put it all together, came out with a much better plan. The offensive line was better with regard to holding up and protection for Herbert. A lot of that also came from coaching and the fact that they were running a little bit more tempo in the second half. They were able to get the run established, and they, for the most part, rode the hot hand in the run game. And this is the type of football that a lot of us, especially us old school types, have been waiting to see for quite some time and never knew if it would ever be a thing again. So yeah, if you're looking for the days of 40-plus point games from a Chargers offense, no, I don't think you're ever going to get that again as long as this is a Jim Harbaugh-led team. You might see a few outliers here and there, but what you will get is a hard-nosed and mostly disciplined team. I don't foresee a lot of what was happening in the first half being a thing moving forward. You saw a lot of that got cleaned up in the second half anyway. But just overall, putting your players in positions to succeed, and the defense holding down the fort while the offense figured it out. And my score prediction for this game was 24-10. And unfortunately, Gus Edwards let me down by not converting that 2-point conversion. But either way, I'll take a win regardless. I don't care. This is the type of football that I want to see. And I want the Chargers to continue to drive the point home. That is going to be a long day when you line up against the Bolts from here going forward.
Yeah, defensively, I mean, they were spectacular today. Outside of that one blown tackle from Zont, and Henley was in on it too. Outside of that, I mean, I don't know that the Raiders scored a touchdown today. It was just one blown assignment, and not only were they able to hold their own, but the offense would not sustain long drives at all. They were running into a wall, and they were leaving the field with 3, 4, 5, 3, 4-play drives back to back to back to back, and that defense had to go right back out there and make another stop. I mean, we're all rolling our eyes going, when are they going to get this offense going? And that defense always made sure that they would keep the offense in the game. And it felt like, we talked about how Harbaugh made the adjustments through the offensive line. They made sure that there weren't any more real issues with the twists and stunts, and the communication was better along the offensive front. But it felt like in the third quarter, when they had that 27-yard pass to Hayden Hurst, it came right after that Carlson missed field goal. They were driving. They're going to cut down the lead to 1 score. Carlson misses that field goal, and then Roman goes, let's take a deep shot. Let's get into their territory, and let's put this game away. They hit Hurst down the sideline, 27 yards. Then, you've got the offensive line now pumping, and then it all started to pay off. J.K. Dobbins runs in. He gets his first touchdown, and the Chargers' first touchdown. And then from there, the running game just broke it open. There was a time where there was 5 minutes left. They had just kind of come off that drive where in the first play of that drive, where it was still 1 score, they ran a play to Scott Matlock, and he dropped it when they were trying to be too cute in the fourth quarter. But right after that, it was 3rd and 2. They were inside their own 20. They were backed up against their own goal line. And you're thinking short pass, maybe Herbert, there's a RPO action. Herbert uses his legs, and they said, no, we're going to run it downhill. J.K. Dobbins gets right in there, gets a first down, and they slowly get the play going. And 2 plays later, J.K. Dobbins, 61 yards, breaks it off, which is the biggest gain from a running back from the Chargers in the last 2 seasons. So it only took Dobbins one game to do that. But, it was that one play to Hurst where Roman felt that the Raiders were kind of starting to sink in that quicksand. Jamie talked about dragging them in that water. They were starting to get waist deep. And then you saw a big splash play getting over to their 50. And then you get it rolling. And then J.K. Dobbins scores. That's just all downhill from there for the Raiders. So it really felt like it was ugly early on. You expected that. But from a veteran head coach and a play caller, It really felt like they knew what their identity was. They said they were going to run the ball. They stuck with it, and it wasn't working to effect. But later on, that defensive line of the Raiders just could not hang, and they were able to win it late.
Well, that's what happens when you make deposits in the run game all game long. Even when it's not working, you continue to do it. Specifically, if that's like, if you want to call it, it's like the foundation of the offense at this point. They want to be able to run the ball, and they didn't quit on it all game long. They didn't do it as often as I would have liked at certain points, but that's what drove them to being able to break that game open late. And that's what you're going to see. Who's going to be able to, or who's going to be willing to line up and, take hits in the mouth literally all game long in the third and fourth quarter? How long are you going to be able to stand up against that? And the Chargers showed the will to be able to do it, and it falls right in line with their head coach because he has that tough-nosed thought process mindset about him, and they followed suit.
Get out of my head, Craig. I was going to make that point. You're watching the game in the moment, and they're getting a yard here, 2 yards there, 3 yards there, and it's easy to get caught up in the shit, man, this running game isn't working. We should be averaging 5 or 6 yards a carry, right? And then you get to the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden it's 5 yards, 7 yards, 60 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, and they're just picking up chunks. And that's what happens when you commit to the running game. They took over the line of scrimmage. The defense controlled the line of scrimmage all day long. But on offense in the second half, they slowly took control of the line of scrimmage. They just kept kind of hitting the Raiders in the mouth with that blunt force object. That blunt trauma to the face, just bam, the jab, little jab here, little jab there, little jab there. Every once in a while you snap their head back, but it doesn't really feel like you're gaining momentum. And then you get that 60-yard punch to the gut, and it's like, oh, okay, this shit's working. And now the Raiders are tired. They're beat up. Now you sneak in the lightning part of the Thunder and Lightning and Dobbins, and he breaks a long run. That's how Jim Harbaugh has won games in the NFL for decades. That's how they won at Michigan. That's how they're going to win with the Chargers. And they're going to win by controlling the line of scrimmage, by punching people in the mouth, by wearing them down, by dragging them into deep water. And I love that this game played out the way that it did, because on the walkthrough this week, when I was talking to Dennis Ackerman, he asked me, what do I expect from the Chargers this year? What's going to be different? And I said, they're going to shock people with their physicality. They're going to punch people in the mouth. They're going to drag them down, stick their face in the mud. They're going to beat the crap out of them. And people are going to get in the fourth quarter and be like, holy shit, this is not the Chargers team we are expecting. And it happens week one, and they wind up winning by multiple scores. And, they're a missed tackle and a drop pass by Palmer away from putting 30 plus on the Raiders and beating them 31-3.
Mm-hmm.
So this game, it looks ugly on paper, but if you look at it in the totality, it's like, this is exactly how you want to win games. You want to bludgeon people, and they did it, and they took control. There was a point there where things could have slipped away, and they took control, and they just kept grinding and fighting, and the Raiders folded. That big, tough team that was talking all that trash in the first half, as they're controlling the line of scrimmage on defense, they folded like a cheap suit, and the Chargers ran the ball right down their throats and won the game.
Yeah, and it's something we've been preaching all off season, just like HMS Vern Dunn said. We've been saying it's going to be a grind. Early on, you're going to get annoyed, like Jamie was talking about. It felt like it wasn't working early on, and you're getting annoyed by Roman and time to pass it, open it up. The Chargers as a whole averaged 6.5 yards a carry as a group. Obviously, 61 yards helped bring that number up, but this is what we've talked about early on. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be a grind, but it's to affect in the fourth quarter to win games late.
It's literally standing toe-to-toe and trading body shots. Who's going to be the first to give? And the Raiders couldn't take it. Now, ironically enough, when you look at the running game to start off, it felt like they didn't necessarily know who they wanted to be the lead back. You saw Gus Edwards unable to really get going, and J.K. Scott was kind of working his way in. And it made me wonder a little bit.
J.K. Dobbins?
I'm sorry, J.K. Scott. Different conversation about J.K. later on. But yeah, thank you. Dobbins, I don't know whether or not the point was to work Dobbins in as the game went along, or if it was just kind of like, okay, let's just hammer him with let's hammer him on Gus and then like follow up with JK because of course he is the lightning to the thunder of it. But Gus just couldn't get going. It felt like he was really slow to the hole. Things weren't really developing for him. Just seems like he's not really in the groove. He missed a lot of the preseason also, so that might have something to do with it. But the fact of the matter is that regardless as to what we feel about Roman, he's someone who will stick to his guns. And if this is who he is at his core, he won't allow anyone to change it. Now, I will say that drive that took place after the Chargers cut the lead to 6, we can't have any of that. I don't want to see another first down pass to Scott Matlock ever again, even though dude turned into like the ginger juggernaut in the fourth quarter and was lead blocking his behind off. I love that. But that drive had me a little worried. You start off with the first down pass to Scott Matlock, the handoff to Gus Edwards and not Dobbins after he proved he had the hot hand. That 3rd and 8 got to have it play, which you threw to Quentin Johnston, who had, for the most part, a good game up until that point. And then that really trash punt by J.K. Scott. That's where my brain was going when I said Scott instead of Dobbins. So that in the past would have been the end of the Chargers. Drives like that would have basically sealed the deal for them, and we'd be here complaining about the poor coaching decisions and the horrible play calling. Instead, they brushed it off. Defense went back on the field, handled their business. Offense came back with the appropriate game plan and made it happen. Now, you know who loves this offense more than all of us? Justin Herbert. Because now all he's asked to do is make timely throws, and the offense is going to have to work its way into this passing game. But in games like this, when you can establish the run and be the bully, you're just asking Justin to turn around and hand the ball off a few times, and there will be opportunities to get the ball down the field via play action. But even if you're not utilizing play action, once those safeties have to start creeping up, then there's going to be instances and opportunities to where you can sneak passes over the top of their heads. Sometimes they're just going to play lazy, and you can see what happened there on that finishing touchdown to let McConkey on that crosser. Guys' legs are worn out. Yeah, guys' legs are worn out. You saw, he basically did a 2-step dance on him to score a touchdown. It was really awesome to see. But dudes were tired at that point. They've been coming downhill. Safeties have been coming downhill trying to attack the run for at least a quarter and a half at that point. So they got lazy legs. And you've got wide receivers who've been out there just doing their thing, running around blocking, and now they get the opportunity to shine. So it was a really awesome thing to see. And it's only up from here as far as the offense is concerned.
And they could, speaking of that play where he made the Raiders do that cha-cha slide, but the fact that they didn't kick a field goal there, or at least like try to run it to effect to try to kick that field goal and take the points, to be aggressive and throw the ball when you've been running it all game, that's where you're able to mix it up. You thinking they're going to run it on a 3rd and 6 at that point? Yeah, 3rd and 6 on their 10. Run the ball, kick that field goal, make it a 2-score game. And Roman and Harbaugh said, nah. And they went straight to McConkey, who was open, sidestepped 2 defenders, and walked into the end zone, which was such a beautiful cap to this game.
Yeah, I think we were all having those flashbacks, Craig, right? When they throw that quick out route to Matlock, and you're like, really? Here? That's like the one time in the last 10 years where every Chargers fan is saying, let's run the ball. Let's grind the clock out. Let's make them stop us. Let's be physical. And they throw a 5-yard out to their defensive tackle. Fullback.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell just happened? Then the next play is a screen pass to Gus. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, what is going on here? And then QJ drops that ball on the sideline. And you're like, shit, here we go.
Yeah.
Comes out, they shut him down, they get the ball right back, they go down and score, and it's like that's how you finish games.
It's a beautiful thing that we've been just since day one have been wanting this Chargers team to be, and wins from these other regimes feel good, but this sinks in a deeper level because they won the way we always wanted them to win, and that's to just manhandle the person across from them and beat them late and grind them out. It's not a fluke, touchdown at the end of the game or a missed field goal. This is we could easily grind out this game. No, we're gonna punch them in the mouth. We're gonna throw it on 3rd and 6. We're gonna beat them by more than just 9 points. We want to go 2 scores and make them drown in this 2-minute warning. So I absolutely love how this feels and just what this means going forward, because they had 2 first downs in the first half. They were 0 for 7 on 3rd downs. This offense was abysmal to start the game. And the fact that they were able to hang around long enough to win that game defensively is impressive among so many fronts. And just a huge shout out to Jesse Minter in that defense today, because without them, I mean, the Chargers are losing by 2 scores.
I think you should send your distant cousin thank you card
Jesse,
or something
I
like
will,
that.
I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang out with them during the holidays or something. I think he's earned it through one game. But yeah, I think we need to give more attention. We've been talking a lot about the offense. The defense deserves a crap ton of credit, if not the majority of it, for the Chargers
All of
being
it.
able to pull this one out. Yeah,
all of it.
because I mean, aside from that 30+ yarder in the first half, one other chunk passing play to one of the Raiders tight ends, the defense played pretty well in the first half and then carried over into the second. Poona Ford. I don't know what else there is to say about Poona. He's kind of been off the map for the last couple of years, but his ability to just be that tree stump in the middle of the defensive line, but also, I mean, he wasn't just standing in there and manning up against the run. He was penetrating against it and causing running backs to have to shift before they got to the line of scrimmage, kind of forcing them out to the perimeters, and the edge guys were able to make a couple plays, and even the safeties. Like, although he had a really bad missed tackle, but man, the way that dude flies downhill with like no regard for his body, you need a couple crazy dudes on your defense to play football like that, just because he has, again, no regard. It's all about making a play for the team. Derwin made a few timely tackles where if he doesn't make those plays, they end up going for really big chunk plays, potentially even touchdowns. And they were opportunistic. They were creating turnovers. Every time the Chargers needed a play to be made on defense, and strangely enough, it was a lot of the time happening when they absolutely had to have it, or the Raiders were looking like they were driving. That's when the plays were being made. And shout out Joey Bosa. We give him a ton of crap, but the dude showed that he is one of the best players in the NFL still when he's healthy. And when he's healthy and on the field and locked in, we got probably the best version of Joey Bosa we've seen in at least 2 years. And this is all around, because generally when you think of Bosa, you just think about the pass rushing ability. He was all over the field today, making hustle plays, forcing turnovers, running guys down from behind. It's that type of effort that makes you wonder, man, if we can just get you to be available more often, then this defense could really hum throughout the season. But overall, the defense played a fantastic game. There are some things to clean up, but it's a night and day difference. Just you change the coaching staff, a few players, and you go from what was arguably the worst defense in the NFL to what looks like it could be a top 10 defense in year one. So that's saying a lot.
I don't even think it's arguable that they were one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They were historically bad for 2 or 3 years in a row, outside of like a 8 or 10 game stretch in year 2 of Staley. So they've been really bad for a while. But I think what impressed me the most is, looking at the team on paper going into the season, you're looking at a couple position groups as a potential problem, right? You're looking at the interior defensive line, you're looking at the corners, and you're looking at the linebackers as like, wow, what are they going to do with these position groups going into the season? And they bring in Taylor Tart. I don't even think he played very much. I don't remember seeing him on the field all that much today. It seemed like the defensive line, the interior of the defensive line was basically just Fox, Ford, and Tito, with some Matlock sprinkled in once or twice. And those guys, I mean, they stepped up and they balled out in a big way. Ford was creating all kinds of havoc on the interior, like Craig said, not just holding his ground and eating up double teams, but penetrating. He affected the quarterback a couple times. He forced runners to cut back into waiting tacklers to cut off runs. I mean, to me, the statement of the game defensively for this team was the Raiders' first possession of the game. They complete a 9-yard pass to Jacoby Myers on first down. The Raiders come out and run the ball on second down. The Chargers stuff them. They run the ball on third down. The Chargers tackle them for a loss. And you're just looking at that saying, there is no way that ends up as anything other than a gash running play on second down for 10 or 15 yards, and the Raiders are on their way to a score. But instead, after a 9-yard gain, you stuff them on two straight plays. You have them rethinking their game plan. They're punting on fourth down I think they were near the plus side of the field at that point. And that just set the tone for the whole game. on the ground, which completely stymied the Raiders offense because they couldn't get anything going on early downs. You get to 2nd and long and 3rd and long. Now you're bringing those blitzes and obvious passing situations, overload blitzes. You're running stunts and games up front. Nothing super exotic, but you're bringing extra bodies. You're stressing the interior of that offensive line, which is a real weakness for the Raiders. Basically, everybody from the left guard on is a huge question mark for the Raiders at this point. So you stress that part of the offensive line. You're forcing them to block you on every single play. You're attacking them, and it just set the tone. They got after the quarterback. I think they had 3 or 4 sacks. They had him running for his life in Minshew all night long, and it was a tone setter. It really made things difficult for the Raiders. They just couldn't get untracked. Outside of really one missed tackle, they really couldn't move the ball.
Yeah, Puna Ford, not only just being the tree stump, but also, he helped out on that 4th down stop, getting upfield. He blew up a screen pass.
Yep.
Yeah, before halftime. And then, of course, that interception at the end of the game. I don't know if you guys saw the celebration, but that was pretty fun. Big man, INTs are always the best. But he spun the football and they did a little campfire in the end zone. It was pretty fun. Everybody sat around. It was cute. But Puna Ford was great. Joey Bosa, he was unbelievable today. And it was flashes of like year 1 or year 2 Bosa. It felt like a totally different Joey Bosa, fully healthy. The shoestring tackle on Minshew on that 3rd down, where it looked like he was going to run for a 1st down anyway. He got a big sack on a 3rd down. He caused that fumble on Zamir White where they got the turnover. And then we haven't mentioned him yet, only by name, but Tito Abonia was massive today.
He's been listening to the pod.
Yeah, because we've been pretty low on Tito, but today it was, he was part of that. Like Jamie was saying, they had that big gain on 1st down. It was Tito who got the tackle for no gain, and then it was Joey Bosa on 3rd down to get the tackle for no gain. They had a 2nd and a 3rd and 1, and they couldn't get a single yard, and that was big on Tito. And another guy who was really good in the run game. He had a really good disengage and tackle on Zamir White, who hit the hole. And if Tito doesn't wrap up with one arm while he's engaging with the offensive lineman with the other, is probably breaking that off for another 5+ more yards, but tackled him for a short gain. It was 1 or 2 yards. So Tito in the middle was awesome today. And if he plays up to that standard, we've got a Puna Ford who looks like, he was going into his 4th year, and he felt like a guy that was going to be in line for a really big contract. Kind of had some, he's plagued by some injuries, some down plays and systems and whatnot. But if we get, a peak type Puna like we saw today, and Tito starting to come into his own, and Fox still being able to work upfield and be disruptive and get some sacks. I think he had the half a sack today. It was that defensive front is no longer the question that we thought it was going into the season.
The defense as a whole, I think the difference between what we saw this week and what we saw last year, the last 3 years, is
keep going back. 6 years, last 7 years, 10 years.
What we've seen in the past is position groups playing well. We get 1 or 2 position groups play well that carry the unit. What we saw today was a defense working as a team and playing in unison at all 3 levels, and everybody executing. They're outside of 1 or 2 missed tackles and a dumb penalty on Taylor along the sideline there.
Yeah.
Everybody seemed to be doing their job. They were all executing. They were where they needed to be. They made the play when they needed to make it. The tackling was phenomenal. I mean, this coaching staff taught Asante Samuel Jr. how to tackle, and he wants to, and he's getting it done. So,
and there's only 1 missed tackle today.
Yeah, only 1 missed tackle, but overall he was, I thought, really good. He made some shoestring tackles. Some shoestring isn't fair. There were physical tackles on the lower body. We'll say low tackles at the ankles. But they played as a unit from the front all the way to the back of the defense, all 3 levels, pitched in and did their job, and nobody was trying to do more than they had to. And I feel like that helped Derwin play better too, because you didn't see a lot of the missed tackles from Derwin. He wasn't getting, beaten coverage terribly. He had a pretty solid game. Nobody really, Joey had a big game. There were guys that played well, but like Mac. They did well because everybody did their job. And I don't remember the last time we can say that about a Chargers defense, that everybody did their job from the front seven all the way to the safeties. And there was nobody out there that you're like, oh my God, why is he out there? God, they're just going to go right after him again. We just didn't have any of that. And you see the results.
The thing about the tackling in general that caught my attention, that has definitely changed since last year. And this was the entirety of the defense, but especially Asante Samuel Jr. The coming downhill and not hesitating when they have the leverage and opportunity to break on the ball, as opposed to allowing the receiver or running back to catch the ball, gain their footing and turn and get upfield to where they get squared up and then potentially miss the tackle because they either overrun the play or the ball carrier receiver breaks them down and jukes them out of their shoes. They were literally attacking the ball the second they saw it in flight. So they didn't care whether or not, in some instances, they were meeting the receiver at the point which they caught the ball. So that's being coached. Asante Samuel Jr. being mostly diminutive in size, you're talking about a guy who was coming downhill and thumping like a linebacker was. And to have the want to do that as an outside corner means everything in this defense, because you're going to be on an island more often than not. You're going to be in situations where the ball goes out into the flat, so there may be like a bubble screen or something like that, and you have to be willing to click and close and make that level of contact. Even if you don't make the tackle, get there and try to blow it up, and guys will rally to the ball. But that is the overall mentality of this defense. The person who does it the best, and you saw it happen during the game at least once, was Denzel Perryman. He shot a gap, got to a running back, and blew up a play in the backfield. Asante Samuel Jr. was attempting to mimic that, but on the outside. Is it going to be successful all the time? No, because he's a smaller guy. But on that one play that broke for the touchdown, a 30-plus yard play into the flat, he hesitated a little bit. And I think Henley assumed that he was going to make the tackle, so he pulled up also, and they both end up whiffing. So Asante didn't hesitate the remainder of the game. He was making his tackles on that play. He pulled up a little bit, kind of went low, and play got blown up. But overall, the defense was playing very solid. There was little to no hesitation when it came to tackling. They were doing a really good job at taking angles, only a few missed tackles, but you saw them going all out. In the past, we've seen this team really loaf to the ball, see guys allowing offensive players to square them up and then juke them and make additional moves to get upfield, and they were being reactionary as opposed to like.
Oh, he froze.
Did we lose Craig?
Yeah.
All right, Craig, jump back on when you can.
Yeah. But just and then also just to his point, it felt, we would see Perryman like on that play where he jumped in through the lane, got a tackle for a loss on a second down on a running play. He was immediately subbed out. Junior Colson came in, ended up getting a pass breakup on that third down. So there was also a nice little rotation among personnel groups, and it felt like they had everything really going to everybody complimenting each other on and off. Craig, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Yeah.
So go ahead, Jamie. You're just about to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think Craig made an excellent point with the tackling, and I commented on it on the Discord, during the game, is as a whole, outside of maybe one or two missed tackles, to me, that was some of the best tackling we've seen from the Chargers top to bottom in years. They wanted to hit people. They wanted to tackle. There was no sidestepping and arm tackles. You even saw defensive linemen tackling running backs with one hand, reaching out and grabbing guys by the collar and dragging them down for losses and no gains. They just, again, I keep saying this, but they wanted it more. They outplayed the Raiders for really the last 3 quarters of the game, especially the last 2 quarters of the game. And they just wanted it more, and they went out and took it. And when's the last time we could say that about a Chargers team?
It's been a long time. And I just want to, there was a comment here, and we'll get to questions in a little bit. I know we're starting to talk around in that, but Scott Childs says their real first test will be against Kansas City. So let's not get too high. They're going to be playing, Carolina and Pittsburgh and everything, but this is different. Doesn't this feel different? This is, obviously it's, the Raiders offense isn't, the best in the league, but let's just enjoy this, because this was a really big first test, especially with how bad they did for that first half.
Let's agree here. This is a game they lose last year. So, take a little joy in that and see it for what it is. Now, was it the greatest test? Absolutely not. But I said this before. Last year, we'd be doing this show, and everyone in here would be regretting the fact that we'd have to do this show. This is not that. Different regime, different mindset, and you got to take something away from that. Don't necessarily overlook it, because the Chargers demonstrated some things here in just this one game, and I know it's only 1 week, that they haven't here in years. The fact that they were able to turn some things around that have been weaknesses into, veritably their strengths now, at least for a week. We'll see what happens from week to week, but the fact that they were able to do what they did today, make adjustments on offense, and have this collective growth on both sides of the ball, where in years past, for the last at least handful of years, they would have absolutely faltered, and that second half would have been a clunker all the way through. Be happy, guys. This is something that's not, you don't overlook games like this from franchises like this. That type of turnaround will lead you to a much better team moving forward. So just, take it for what it's worth. Don't, it's the Raiders. We get it. They're not great, but that was a physical team, and the Chargers met the challenge and then backed them down.
They got a win against the Raiders last year, and it came down to the last play of getting an interception from the Chargers, and then they ended up, letting the Raiders put up 63 on them. And this is a better Raiders team this year than they were last year. Obviously, there's Easton Stick and everything else, but I don't think we need to start tempering expectations. Nobody's saying, they're going 17-0 and this is the best team in the NFL. But what we are saying is this is different. This is an absolutely different team, a new regime, and it took one game up until 3 quarters to realize that Harbaugh's not messing around. Jesse Minter has got something going, and if they can keep this and ride this kind of wave that they're doing right now, they're going to be winning a lot of football games.
The Chargers won a game in which their defensive coordinator said, "This is what we're doing. You know what we're going to do heading into 2nd and long and 3rd and long." And there's not a goddamn thing you can do about it. And you know what? There wasn't a goddamn thing they could do about it. Yeah.
And I say, ultimately, that's football, though, right? All of the, smoke and mirror stuff is cute. You can get away with it every once in a while, but what it's really about is lining up and whooping the man across from you. And eventually, that's what it's going to boil down to. So you saw the Chargers do that today. You know what this offense is going to be about, and you know what the defense is going to be about. Now, can you stop it, and can you be effective against it is the question.
Yes. All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we start send your questions in, but is there anything else you guys feel like we need to cover now that we've touched on a lot of it?
Just as a final point on what Scott was saying, keep in mind, this is basically the same Raiders team that beat the Chargers 63-21 in December.
Yeah.
Not all that far removed from that humiliating, disgusting, demoralizing ass whipping.
I would say better. But
what's that?
I would say better. The offense not today is better.
Our offense is, you're saying the Chargers offense or the Raiders offense?
No, the Raiders.
Oh, well, the personnel is largely the same outside of Minshew for the most part. They haven't, they added Bowers. They added Bowers. They didn't use him all that much today outside of a couple catches. But I guess what I'm just saying is this is largely the same Raiders team that beat the crap out of their Chargers in December. Mm-hmm. This is largely the same Chargers team that quit against the Raiders in December. And now you have the Chargers winning this game by 2 scores and bludgeoning the Raiders and taking a team that was talking all kinds of shit in the first half and literally beating them into submission. From a physical
frustrating them so much that they had to throw hands.
Yes, they had to pick a fight because they couldn't handle getting their asses whipped.
Yeah, they had to go the thug way, typical Raider stuff. So they had to pick a fight in an attempt to win something because they definitely weren't winning the game.
Couldn't beat them between the whistles.
Nah, absolutely not. What happened to Max Crosby in the second half? I don't feel like I heard his name very much.
They just a stat came out that Joe Alt gave up 0 pressures when going up against Zach Crosby today. I think it was 7 or 8 snaps against him, but
I don't know that that's accurate.
Okay,
well, I wouldn't say. See, it gets really funky when you're talking about pressures, like the way that they judge that. Is that a PFF stat?
This is from that aggregator, ML Football.
Okay, I don't know where he pulls his info from. I
Yeah.
will say this though. I thought it was interesting that they, for at least I know it happened a few times in the first half early on, they had Crosby over Slater and they were running stunts and twists on that side away from Alt. So I think maybe they were trying to throw the Chargers a curveball early. But as the game went on, when it started off, Crosby was all over the place. As the game went on, you started hearing less and less about him. And I know a lot of that in the second half had to do with the fact that they were running a little bit more tempo and it wasn't giving the Raiders an opportunity to kind of set up those stunts and twists, to run any exotic type of defenses. They had to line up and go man to man. And again, like I said before, that's what it all boils down to. But that's the difference in this team. And in years past, you have a coaching staff that understands, hey, we don't want to give them an opportunity to set up this defense. We're struggling to pick up these twists and stunts. So let's just speed up the game a little bit and force them to go against the man directly across from them and beat them one-on-one. And more often than not, the Chargers were winning those matchups later in the game, and it paid off.
I was going to share this with you. This was actually from the broadcast. In 8 snaps, Joe Alt going one-on-one against Max Crosby. Was it the CBS broadcast? Gave him 0 pressures allowed. So that's where that comes from. Just
interesting.
Go back and watch that.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right, but Alt did good today. For sure.
No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. Going back to some of these comments, Max, this was like every game of the last 10 years in reverse. It did feel that way, didn't it?
It was Bizarro Chargers.
The upside down.
We were in the upside down. Yeah. So we got a Bizarro world. Mel 21. Thanks for the donation. LFG listening to the Chargers podcast all week. Undermine our defense was sickening. Glad they showed up. Man, Raiders fans on Twitter were just the absolute worst this week. Everything was about that 63-10 or whatever. I don't even know the score. That's how little I care about it. But they brought that up all the time.
Well, it was their Super Bowl, so you'd expect them to bring it up all the time.
Yeah, yep. And then from LA Chargers fans, he's got a question. Did they do anything different in the second half to open up the run game? J.K. Dobbins looked like he lost his breakaway speed. J.K. Dobbins did, and I caught it while I was waiting for you guys. J.K. Dobbins did joke that he's going to need to lose a little bit more weight because he was really pissed off that they caught him from behind. So he made a little joke about it.
There's a little piano on the back feeling there on that 61-yard run where you can see him looking over his shoulder like, oh, shit.
He got 35 yards and went, oh, shit.
He just ran out of gas. I don't think the breakaway speed is in there. I think it's the endurance. So his ability to hold top speed for a longer period of time, because JK hasn't always been the fastest guy. He's got good burst and pretty decent acceleration, but his long speed's never been great. I would say that he's working his way back still. And dude's had some major injuries, and this was probably his best game since maybe his rookie year or year 2. So give him some time. He'll probably need to drop a few LBs. Yeah, I agree. But you see the explosiveness. Like on that first run, the first breakaway run, I thought he hurt himself. He kind of stopped, made a little bit of a jump cut, and it looked kind of awkward. It looked like he pulled something. Like, oh crap, it would happen on a run like this. And he stuck his foot in the ground, was able to break off another 20, 25 plus yards. But JK is going to be fine as he goes through the season. He just has to do a really good job with recovery, and I'm sure that they will do that for him. But if he can produce at this level, and Gus can kind of get him into the groove, that's going to be a very formidable 1-2 punch in the backfield.
And I do want to say on the broadcast, they said it was 110 on the field today. And we were heading into the fourth quarter. I'm not putting any excuses because he obviously ran out of gas about 30, 40 yards into that run. But it was towards the end of that game. It was hot. But I was thinking about this when it happened, but Colby brought it up. Colby Lavelle. I've never seen a head coach run towards a scrum to get his players. Harbaugh is the leader we needed. Do you guys remember a head coach running towards a fight like that? I know in the NBA, you see coaches do that all the time, but I don't see it in the NFL very often. I was like, oh man, Harbaugh is on the field. It felt foreign to me.
That's funny. I just thought about Jeff Van Gundy getting buried under.
Holding onto his leg.
Dragged in. It's hilarious. No, but man, it's Jim Harbaugh. You expect any less? The dude's a maniac.
Yeah.
So I expect. I expect this to happen again at some point. Like guys will get into each other's faces and Jim will probably jump in and either break it up. He might get a word or two in there. Dude's a former football player. He was a quarterback that talked crap also. He was all about that. So you kind of get a little bit of what you don't get from Herbert in that way. The way you used to get it from Phil, you kind of get it from the head coach now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember. I bet we could go back in the tape and find his brother jumping into a scrum like that.
That's possible for sure. But
That
we
wouldn't
didn't
surprise
see,
me.
we never saw Lynn or McCoy or Staley anywhere near.
Definitely not a Chargers coach. Definitely not. I'm thinking maybe Butkus or somebody like that probably did it at some point too. Or not Butkus.
I bet Singletary did it.
Yeah. I'm sure it's
He was a
happened. Not,
maniac.
definitely not for the Chargers though.
Yeah.
Other Chicago Bears head coach. Why am
Ditka.
Ditka.
I was thinking
Ditka
Ditka.
Phil. Yeah, there you go.
All right.
I got my
Bears mixed up.
Bears mixed up.
Yeah. All right. John Taylor's got a question. Are you guys concerned with the quality the Chargers have in the wide receiver room?
I think it's definitely something that we need to monitor. It's something we've talked about all preseason long. That's a really good defense. It's a good secondary. So I'm not sure that that's the best defense to make that judgment based on, just because they were the best defense in the league for the last 9 games of the year last year after Pierce took over. So they know what they're doing out there. They're veterans. They're really good. I do think there are some things they can do to mitigate that to some extent. I think we'll see some more like smoke screens and bubble screens and more slants and crossers and things like that to try to create some natural picks and get guys open. I think Palmer's a guy who can get himself open. I think Ladd is a guy who can get himself open. QJ still, kind of a work in progress. But yeah, I think, they're going to be battling the quality of the wide receiver room all year, but they're going to have to do some things to help them out in terms of scheming them open, maybe running some more condensed formations. Like I said, more screens, more crossers, more slants, things designed to get the ball out of Herbert's hand early and give them a chance to run with the ball after the catch.
Also hope DJ Chark helps a little bit in that room too. Go ahead, Greg. Did
I
I jump on you? Sorry.
Exactly what I was about to say. I think
Sorry.
you saw. No, it's all good. It's exactly where I think they missed DJ Chark today. The fact that they couldn't really threaten the Raiders vertically. They're going to have to figure that out, whether it be via Darius Davis or however they want to go about it. Because when the safeties don't respect anything deep down the field, they can come up and play the run, which helps be able to defend a running game, especially when it's kind of like your bedrock and the thing that you lean on. So overall, the wide receiving core, I think, will be fine. They're just going to have to do some things like Jamie mentioned to manufacture some open space to get them open. There are some guys that can win one-on-ones. We know what type of route technician Ladd McConkey is. Palmer's a very good route runner as well. QJ, they're going to have to do things to get him open. Even though he is improved as a route runner, that's not really his forte. And I don't love him, as we saw today in one-on-one situations, trying to win contested deep balls, because that's not his bag. It's never been his bag. And the times that he does win, probably going to be few and far in between. But DJ Chark not being around probably hurts them a bit. So I'm interested to see how they manufacture some of those deep balls. They'll probably have to continue to do it during play action or via play action pass. But they don't have just a genuine, true vertical threat. Overall, the rest of the wide receiver room, you got some guys. He didn't play today. Rice wasn't active, but you got some opportunity for guys to be in there and be more physical route runners, catching the ball over the middle in the intermediate portion of the field. So they're gonna have to figure out some way to unleash and uncork Herbert's arm. It'll probably be via the play action. But when you're running the ball like this, it makes it that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can also find ways to help the wide receivers out by getting the tight ends more involved in the play action passing game as well, which is something Roman's always been very good at, is that those deep overs and the crossers. We saw him kind of fake a screen to spring Hurst open down the sideline. So there's things they can do with the tight ends to take some pressures off the running back, or off the wide receivers, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a work in progress all year. It's not an area where they have like a clear-cut number one wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to manufacture touches for these guys and find ways to create space for them, because some of these guys just aren't going to get open consistently on their own.
I
Yeah.
love that orbit motion to Darius Davis to get the corner to bite down and free up. Who was that? Caught that pass? Was it
It
Hurst?
was Hurst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
off the sideline, beautiful. Herbert looked it off, amazingly pumped it on there to Darius Davis on that orbit motion, and there was nothing but grass in front of Hurst. So they'll find some plays and little tweaks and things that they can do to open up passing lanes like that and opportunities for the tight ends. But I'd like to see them get the wide receivers a little bit more involved as well.
And they, like I think it was Scott who mentioned earlier, they've got I don't want to get ahead of myself, but they've got Carolina coming up who just looked like they're destined for that number 1 pick this year. And then they've got Pittsburgh, who really had some issues with the Falcons, who just didn't look very, very good offensively today. And then they get Kansas City. So they've got a couple games, whether they still got to win those games, but they've got a couple games to kind of figure that out too. But I think it's obviously something to be concerned with, but there are ways, like they both mentioned, that you can get those open. And, when they can get the running game to be more effective early on, the easier that pass game is going to open up too. But because everything was behind the sticks today, especially in the first half, they really couldn't get a rhythm going in the passing game. So you didn't really see it click until that Hurst play that we've mentioned over and over again, where it felt like once they were able to get Hurst up the sideline, they get a big gainer. That's when things started to open up a little bit more offensively in the run game and in the pass game. Just going through these questions here. Disappeared. Crosby disappeared so much. Garrett changed his name to Zach Crosby. Did I say Zach instead of Max?
You did. You did.
Oh, I did? Oh,
Yeah.
Damn. Hey, there's nothing more disrespectful than saying somebody's name wrong on purpose, by the way. Tracy, what's your analysis on Justin Herbert? Why did he look like he had cement feet? Was he missing open guys? From Tracy Keenan.
So I think there were very clear breakdowns in protection early in that game. They were not able to run the ball early in the game. They were really stressing the Chargers' interior offensive line, testing their communication with Pipkins and Bozeman and Zion out there. So I don't think he had cement feet. I just don't think he had anywhere to go. They closed him into the pocket. They collapsed the pocket. He had guys at his feet on almost every pass attempt in the first 2.5 quarters, it seemed like. So he was throwing the ball flat-footed because he could not climb the pocket, and there was nowhere to escape from the pocket based on how they were coming after him. So he was double clutching a lot, pump faking. I don't think he was trusting what he was seeing. He was pulling the ball down a lot and throwing the ball flat-footed, and the ball was coming out late in some circumstances just because of how they were attacking him, and they were pinning him in the pocket, and there was just nowhere for him to go.
I mean, you got to remember, Herbert is first and foremost, he's thinking about protecting the ball. So you saw him again a lot of times when there was a lot of traffic around him, as opposed to looking to try to find a way to make a play and potentially turn the ball over. He just eat it or look to get the ball out of bounds and out of harm's way. There were instances where the pressure was so good that they sped up his process, and maybe he threw a ball a tick quicker than what he wanted to. There were guys that maybe were open that he just missed and overshot because he had to get the ball out. There wasn't that extra second that he could take to really layer it and get it in there. There were some drops also. Palmer, just a couple of those that weren't great. But overall, Herbert did the best that he could with what he was working with, particularly earlier. But as you saw, as the game went on and the running game started going, there were better opportunities for him to really set his feet and get balls in the proper passing lanes, really get the ball on the receivers, throwing them open. So I don't think he was, stuck in the mud or his feet were in cement or anything like that. He just did what he could, and that early pass rush from the Raiders was pretty hellacious.
Going through some of these comments about Harbaugh going on the field. That's why Harbaugh wears cleats, so he can run on the field. And then HMS, my memory of McCoy is him in the fetal position for that Broncos game the year he got fired. So he definitely didn't run on. If you guys got any more questions, we'll probably get out of here in a little bit. Thanks for everybody that's joining us. Huge turnout for this first first podcast of the regular season. Game 1, getting the first win from Junius, friend of the podcast, Junius Lim, for the Lightning Round podcast crew. Feeling good about how Minter is using Derwin? How do you guys feel they did with Derwin today?
I'd have to go back and watch. It seemed like he was playing a lot of nickel, which was where he played a lot um, during camp. So I think that's good because it allows him to match up with tight ends a lot more and running backs and make plays underneath. Um, I didn't have a problem with it. It didn't seem like he was moving around as much or being asked to do nearly as much on a down to down basis at different positions as he has been in recent years.
I think the usage was pretty basic today, and there are a few reasons for that. They're still working this defense into form, and there have been pieces that have been added just in the last couple of weeks. Like when you look at a guy like Elijah Molden, who got a little bit of burn today, I feel like as the season goes on, they'll start maneuvering him, Derwin, and Alohi a little bit. So you'll see Derwin used in certain ways, depending on the matchup for that week. But I think they kept it pretty basic for week one. Like Jamie mentioned, I'll have to go back and watch exactly how where he took his snaps. Did see him in the slot a bunch. Mm-hmm. But again, this is a defense that's still rounding into form. It's only week one, and there are some pieces that will probably be contributing a bit more in the coming weeks, and you'll probably see Derwin used much more as a chess piece then.
Yeah, he got moved around. We'll look at exactly where he was implemented, but it just felt like they kind of had their own thing going, and they were going to just keep it pretty simple today. And they're going to give for the quarterback, and then they were going to have the DBs crash underneath, and that felt like it was the plan all day today. It wasn't like they were going to put Derwin at 7 different positions today. So far, easy sledding, something we talked about forever, where you have Derwin do one thing and have him do it great because he's a special player, rather than having him play 7 different positions at linebacker, free safety, edge rusher, rush him inside, have him quarter outside. There wasn't much of that today. We didn't see a ton of moving around, a lot of nickel, some in the slot, but a pretty good game today. Seemed, he gave up a catch or two, but coverage was tight. I didn't have any problems with Derwin today or his usage.
Yeah, to me, it seemed like whereas in years past, where like the defense was all about where is Derwin on this play, today it just seemed like he just blended in, and he was just another guy who was doing his job, which I think is really what you need out of him right now. He doesn't need to be, moving around, playing 7 or 8 different positions from down to down. I'm sure as they evolve the defense and things change and grow with the groups, I'm sure that they will move him around more, and we'll get more of that, like, where in the world does Derwin James feel? But today it just felt more like he blended in. He was 1 of 11 making plays, doing his job, and they didn't really have to ask him to move mountains in order to win the game.
I want to throw this in here really quickly. I think someone should send Colton Miller that meme from Remember the Titans with Coach Boone talking to Bertier, asking him who his daddy was, because Khalil Mack was whipping him all day long. It was amazing. I can't wait to rewatch that. I've not seen an offensive tackle get pushed and manhandled into the backfield as often as it happened today in quite some time. It was glorious.
Joey did it to him quite a bit too. He was on skates all day long.
All right, so we've got it. Last question here. From Braxton, Omar also asked it here. For you guys, who gets the game ball?
Wow. This is tough because so many guys contributed and made plays that it's a hard one to nail down. I would say for me, it would come down to 1 or 2 guys. It's either Dobbins because of the way he helped close the game out on the ground, or Joey for the dirty work he was doing in the running game all day long. For me, it'd be one of those 2 guys.
For me, it's Joey. When we're talking about timely plays, he made at least 2 today. There's the forced fumble, and then also I forget what play it was, but Minshew had a wide open lane that would have converted on a 3rd down, and Joey caught him shoestring tackle from behind that forced the punt. So all day long, just the plays that don't necessarily stand out on the in the stat line because it just shows up as a tackle. But as far as context is concerned, Joey made, to me, some of the most timely plays in today's game.
I can think of 4 plays that he made that directly led to either turnovers or punts. Mm-hmm. He had a sack on 3rd down. He had the run stop on 3rd down on the Raiders' first possession. He forced that fumble, and then he had that play where he tripped up Minshew. All of those plays led to change of possessions for the Chargers.
Yeah, Chargers getting 3 turnovers from a Minshew fumble, White fumble, the Poona Ford interception, and then the stop on 4th down, and then getting 4 sacks today 1.5 for Mack, a half for Fox, and then 1 for Bosa. Tito was in on that Bosa sack as well. You could make a case for Tito, who played great, but Ford was amazing. It just felt like J.K. Dobbins getting over 100 yards on only 10 rushes today, closing that game out strong, is a big contender for it. I'm giving it to Bosa too. Just felt like he just helped wreck the game today.
And this is where winning the turn. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Garrett.
No. That's where I was going for sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is where there's more emphasis on winning a turnover battle. When your offense seems stuck in the mud, if your defense can come through and make plays for you like that, you can hold down the fort also on special teams. I mean, Dicker also 3 for 3 today. So you have to win in at least 2 phases of the game. And if you can win a turnover battle, it can erase like a multitude of sins. If your offense sucks, but you're winning a turnover battle and you don't turn the ball over yourself, like I don't think the Chargers didn't have a single turnover today, I don't believe. So, I mean, this is what winning football looks like. So Joey contributed to a bunch of that, which is why he's my game ball guy.
All right, the chat. If you're still in this feed, stay here because this is where we're going to end it. The feed unanimously wants us to end this show with this post-game speech from Jim Harbaugh. I have not seen it. Jamie has not seen it. Craig has not seen it. This is how we close out this show. Let's listen to it. People are freaking out about it. Let's hear what he's got to say.
On behalf of all the newcomers to the Chargers, myself and everybody else, on behalf of them, I just want you to know we're the lucky ones. We're the lucky ones. The worm has turned. The worm has turned. What?
2 game balls to give out.
2 game balls, all right? Okay.
Coach Harbaugh.
J.K. Dobbins, where you at? Hey, Bo. Steve, that's his ball. What do you got? That's his ball. I'm going to get that back.
O-line, you blocked incredible for me, man. I couldn't do it without you. Quarterback, not without you. All y'all defense, y'all held it down in the first half.
Oh, yeah. So
we were keeping real. You know what I'm saying? We got to do better for y'all. We will. We're going to keep stacking. We're going to keep getting better each and every day. Let's move on to the next week now.
All right, now we got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do now. And you can't get more work done. You won't make as much progress in the entire season as you will from week 1 to week 2. I'm telling you, this is the week to attack. But you can't get to 2-0 without being 1-0. Yeah. Who's got it better than us?
Nobody. Let's go. All right, everybody, thank you. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.